What up, everybody, and welcome inside A Bettor Morning, presented to you by Rival Fantasy. Rival Fantasy is the all-in-one fantasy sports platform. Top of the morning, right here from A Bettor Sports Network. I'm your host, Corey Parson, the fantasy executive. Got a lot to get into in a short time, you know what I mean? So we're going to get ready to get started shortly. But I definitely got to talk about some of the last night's action in college football with that Clemson and Duke game. Sat up here all summer and told y'all I didn't like Cade Klubnik. Sat up here all summer and told y'all to fade Clemson. Sat up here all summer and said, don't be surprised if Duke beat them in the opening game. But I guess nobody listens to the fantasy executive. I had a fantasy football draft last night. I'm going to tell you today how you can move your home league draft to Rival Fantasy and the perks you will get from that. But we got to start. NFL football is back this week. Football night in America. Fox America's game of the week. You name the football franchise, it returns this week, and we could not be more excited about it right here on the Bettor Sports Network. And I want to get into one of the games that I'm really interested in seeing this week. Because this AFC is a powerful conference, right? You got all the top quarterbacks. You got Mahomes, you got Burrow, you got Rodgers, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, all the big-time teams, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Buffalo. You want to put any other teams in the AFC in that mix, you're welcome to do so. Now, it's going to be a fight to get a playoff spot in the AFC. And that's why I'm confidently willing to say there is a game with massive playoff implications in week one. Massive playoff implications in week one. Fantasy exec, you got to be tripping. How are you going to have massive playoff implications in week one of the season? Well, when you got two teams like the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Chargers who play in the AFC, who have playoff level rosters, these games are going to mean something regardless of what week they're in. This game could be looked at as a tiebreaker as teams trying to get in the playoffs. As a matter of fact, the Chargers beat the Dolphins late last year. That was one of the reasons why they made the playoffs. So yes, there is playoff implications in week one, particularly with this game between the Chargers and the Dolphins. Chargers open up this game as a 3-point home favorite. Miami Dolphins come in as a popular underdog. Matter of fact, a pretty heavily bet underdog. A lot of people in on the Miami Dolphins in this game. I'm actually going to go the other way, and I'm not a big Charger guy. I think their coach is a buffoon, Brandon Staley. But I am a big-time handicapper. Like, I know what works in the handicapping space. I figure out little nuggets that, you guys either don't get to or don't have the time to get to. And the nugget is the Chargers have been very good at home in the Brandon Staley era. Like, when I say very good, I mean they play their best football at home. They have their biggest wins at home. And they seem to be more comfortable in their home building. Now, they don't have no fans, so it's not like a home field advantage. You ever met a Charger fan? Miami Dolphins got plenty of fans, though. And they'll probably come out to Los Angeles and back them this weekend. A little extended vacation for the South Beach crew. Let me tell you my issue with the Chargers. It starts with their head coach, and now you can add their offensive coordinator because he's not going to make it much better. The head coach doesn't know what he's doing. That's first and foremost, Mr. 4th and 15, Brandon Staley. And then we know that Kellen Moore can be a good offensive coordinator for fantasy purposes. But do you really want him making your play calls that you run down the stretch of close games? We've already seen that the Chargers have a problem closing teams out. That's not really Kellen Moore's best asset. But then again, Kellen Moore's an offensive coordinator. His job is to get first downs, get yardage, score touchdowns. Brandon Staley's the head coach. His job is to win the game. Those two things are mutually different. Like, Staley can want to win the game. Kellen Moore can want to run his numbers up. Kellen Moore is not charged with winning the game. Brandon Staley is. That dynamic didn't work in Dallas. Going to be interesting to see how it works with the Chargers with a head coach who has not won a Super Bowl like Mike McCarthy has. Now, we know the offensive talent, Big Mike Will, Quentin Johnson, Keenan Allen. Justin Herbert, a 5,000-yard passer, lit. Austin Eckler, all guys we like, plenty of talent. Derwin James and that crew on the defense, one of the most talented teams in the league. Their coaching needs to be better, and it'd be cool if they had a home field advantage, but they don't. They don't need that to advance. But a lot of people think that this team is a team that can make a run to the AFC divisionals or the AFC championship. Not with that head coach, they're not going to do that. I can guarantee you that. He'll do something to mess it up. As a matter of fact, if he gets fired during the season, I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't think Brandon Staley is the coach of the Chargers next year. He's going to have a massive season this year. And I can see this team missing the playoffs because, like I said, that AFC is very tough. Marquee matchup this week, Miami comes to town. Now, when you look at the Miami Dolphins, obviously it starts with Tua. If Tua is healthy and ready to go, this is a team that could play to the divisional round in the AFC. Can they make the AFC championship game? Probably not. Their head coach is not much better than Brandon Staley, in my opinion, but I think he does a better job of what the talent that he has. Dolphins are going to run the football well. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, you know the particulars. It's all about the health of Tua, and can that defense stop the run? It was problematic for them last year. They didn't come back and get that going this year. I think the Dolphins can be a successful team, but I worry about them this week. I know a lot of people are backing the Dolphins this week. I would slow down, pump the brakes with that. I would put the Chargers in the money line parlay. Like a Chargers-Jaguars money line parlay sounds like something that's I'm going to have a ticket on. That I get a little bit of 425 action this week. I don't know how you guys are, but I like to set my wagers up because I don't pretend to be Billy Walters. I can handicap games and give you good advice, but this is wagertainment. You know what I'm saying? I don't think none of us trying to move to Vegas and become professional handicappers. If that is your dream, then you probably need to have your own advice and not listening to me. With that being said, lay the number with the Chargers or take the Chargers on the money line on this one right here. Don't be swept up into this Dolphin hype. Next game I want to get to, this is another very, very interesting game right here, Rams and Seahawks. Let's start with the Rams and the Cooper Kupp issue. I think Cooper Kupp went to Minnesota or something to see a hamstring specialist. Now, as many teams as I got Cooper Kupp on so far this draft season, I need to have a hamstring specialist at my house so I can come down here and examine Cooper Kupp because I'm pretty deep into Cooper Kupp status when it comes to how many teams I have Cooper Kupp on. You can come back to my face right now. So Kupp goes to Minnesota for the hamstring treatment. Have you ever heard about a hamstring specialist? Do you know anybody who is in the practice of hamstrings? Is there a such thing? Is there a science of hamstrings? Is there a hamstringology? Because I've never heard of it. Maybe it's something else Cooper Kupp is dealing with. Whatever the case may be, I wish I'd have known about it before I put him on two of my high-stakes fantasy teams. Now I got lineups this week with stiffs in the lineup for week one. I'm looking at a week one lineup with Brandon Cooks as a wide receiver too. Anyway, I digress. Now, the issue with Kupp not being there for the Rams is anybody else for the Rams going to score? I know a lot of smart people like Cam Akers this year. I can dig that. I was on the clock last night and almost took Cam Akers, but I didn't. Sean McVay, good head coach. I mean, the win total is 5.5. I think they're going to be in the Caleb Williams, Drake May sweepstakes, tanking. But this game right here is going to be interesting. Now, they're going up against the Seahawks. Seahawks laying 5.5 now. And the Seahawks are a team I like a lot this year. As a matter of fact, that draft I had last night, I played quarterback chicken a little bit too long. Ended up with Geno Smith as my quarterback, and I'm comfortable with that. I think Geno's a 30-touchdown thrower. I think he leads this Seahawks team. Now, this Seahawks team, I think, can be in the NFC Championship game this year. That's how high I am on Seattle coming into the season. I love Pete Carroll. I love this offense. They need to get better on defense, but they play in the NFC. They don't have to deal with the gauntlet that is the AFC. Now, a lot of people are talking about using the Seahawks as their survivor team this weekend. You know the survivor pool where you pick one team to win a week? Sounds easy, but it's a very difficult thing to do. Be very careful picking the Seahawks this week because, number one, it's a division matchup. Number two, the Rams in their last 9 games against the Seahawks are 8-1 ATS. So the Rams are going to make this a tough game. I'm not going to go to the window with this one, but if I was, I would take the 5.5 with the Rams, as nasty as that sounds. Be very careful betting favorites in week 1. And if you want to see your survivor pool team go down in flames before the season gets started good, throw the Seahawks on there this week. I'm not saying they're going to lose, but you're going to sweat that joint out. So don't be all gun-ho on the Chargers, on the Dolphins this week, like the public is, and don't be all gun-ho on the Seahawks this week, like the public is. Styles make fights, and the Rams have figured out something, with the Seahawks style. Bottom line, the numbers don't lie. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Neither does the fantasy executive. Now, not waiting all day for Sunday night. We've been waiting all year for Sunday night. And this Sunday night, an annual Sunday night tradition. The Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants in week 1. This time from the Meadowlands, MetLife Stadium, or as I like to call it, Jet Life Stadium. This game right here between two playoff teams from last year, NFC East powerhouse rivals, right? Cowboys 3.5 road favorite. Whenever a team is a 3.5 point favorite on the road, that team is normally pretty good. Because in order to lay the hook on the road, you got to be worth something. You know who else laying the hook on the road this week? The Eagles are. So you got to be that kind of team to lay the hook on the road. Eagles laying 3.5 on the road. Cowboys laying 3.5 on the road. That Eagle number would probably go to 4.5. Eagles could be a good survivor team for this week. Now, obviously, Bill Belichick on that other sideline is scary. But back to Cowboys and Giants. This game comes down to 2 units. Dallas's defense versus the Giants' offense. Who do you think going to win? Daniel Jones and the New York Giants or Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys? The Giants are an improved team. They're an improving roster. They're going to fight for a playoff spot this year. They're not ready to contend with the Dallas Cowboys yet. Could the Giants win this game? Of course they could. Smart wager is to make the play on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I told y'all I had a draft last night and went pretty well. Came out of it pretty good. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, T. Higgins, 3 starting wide receivers. But, I was working with a partner, so I ended up having Kyle Pitts on my team. And I'm not really a big fan of that. But when you're working with a partner, sometimes you got to compromise. So a lot of people in the high-stakes community thinking this is the breakout season for Pitts. Me, I got to see it, but I got him on one team. I'm fine with that. I got to go through and do some of my exposure today, and I'll let you know about that tomorrow. Now, I got another draft tonight, but this draft tonight is a home league draft. Speaking of home league drafts, I want to tell you about what they're doing in Rival Fantasy right now. This is pretty cool. So Rival Fantasy, that's the company that sponsors this show, they're setting up where they want you to bring your home league to Rival Fantasy this year. So you can play fantasy football on Rival Fantasy this season and have a chance to be one of 100 sponsored leagues with Rival paying your league prizes. How about that? That's pretty cool. You can go over to Rival Fantasy, take your home league over to Rival Fantasy, and you'll have a chance to be one of 100 sponsored leagues where Rival Fantasy is going to play your league prizes. To be eligible, leagues must complete their drafts by September 7th. Prize ranges from $250 to $1,000 per league. You can also go to Rival Fantasy to get up to a $200 deposit match plus a complimentary first play voucher. Go to joinrival.com/along. Now, let me show you how to do the Rival Fantasy thing right here, right? If you want to go in there and make Rival Fantasy your home league. Rival Fantasy home screen login page right here. You want to go up here to this upper left-hand corner, click on season long. Look at the cool graphics right there. Start your own season-long league today. Create your dream roster, challenge friends, and dominate the competition with customizable rules and thrilling matchups. Our platform brings you fantasy football dreams to life. Start crafting your league now. I'm getting pretty excited about this. Let's go create league. I used to be a commissioner, love doing this stuff right here. NFL's a sport, 12-team league, a redraft. You also got keeper option as well, and Dynasty coming soon. Hit that next button right there. Put in your team, your league name, Fantasy Executives. It's going to be the league name. So there you go right there. It's a fairly simple concept. Just go to Rival Fantasy, click on season long, and start to build your season long league right there. Tell the homies y'all got a new place for them to play fantasy football this year. Play fantasy football on Rival Fantasy this season and have a chance to be one of 100 sponsored leagues with Rival paying your league prizes. To be eligible, leagues must complete their drafts by September 7th. Prizes range from $250 to $1,000 per league. So head on over there to Rival Fantasy and set up your season-long league. Take your season-long crew to Rival Fantasy. Now, let's get into some college football action from last night. And I mentioned earlier that I told y'all to be wary about Clemson this year. Clemson, a national powerhouse for a better part of a decade. But things at Clemson started to take a turn over the course of the last couple of years. You got Florida State and apparently Duke catching up in the ACC. North Carolina has a number one draft pick type quarterback in the ACC. South Carolina is kicking butt recruiting in-state. It's tough times for Dabo Swinney and Clemson. Now, Dabo Swinney, and now listen, you're going to hear a lot of people pile up on Dabo Swinney today. People like to take shots at Dabo Swinney. He has stuck his foot or, let me say, viewed his opinion on some things a couple times. People haven't forgotten about it. People hold Dabo Swinney accountable. People like to root against Dabo Swinney. But pump the brakes when it gets to being too negative on Dabo Swinney. His former players all love him. His current players love him, right? Now they're struggling right now. The problem is Dabo Swinney is kind of like how Gary Williams was back at the coach of Maryland. Like when everybody was going the run and done route, Gary Williams was recruiting kids that was going to stay in school for 4 years. Now, don't get me wrong. He won a championship that way. Remember Kevin Durant, who grew up in Capitol Heights, Maryland, said he never heard from Gary Williams? And Maryland was right down the street? Because Gary Williams wasn't going to play the one and done game. It ended up costing him his job. Dabo Swinney is not going to play the transfer portal game. So you get beat by 21 by Duke. This ain't the standard that's been set for Clemson football. Dabo Swinney needs to put his differences with what's going on in college football to the side, become a player in the transfer portal and NIL game. Dabo Swinney make plenty of money. He should not care. Do what you got to do to lead this program. The president of the university, the athletic director, you can fool them, but you can't fool the fan base. And listen, people are going to be coming at that team today. But I told you, Cade Klubnik was no good. He looked terrible last night. The way that they were turning the ball over, it almost looked as if they were trying to throw the game at one point. But no, they just that bad. Mistake after mistake after mistake, red zone turnovers, red zone fumbles. Shout out to Duke for playing situational football. It's not like Duke was great last night, but success breeds confidence. And the more success they had, the more confident the team got. So, yeah, that's what happened. Can Clemson bounce back and still win the ACC and still compete for the college football playoff? Yes, they could. Will they? I doubt it. Dabo Swinney needs a come-to-Jesus moment. You got kids at Duke storming the court. You lost to I said the court, for Christ's sakes, because I've never seen them storm the field before. It's a basketball school, Dabo. Embarrassing. North Carolina, 2, South Carolina, 0 this week. Tar Heels killed the Gamecocks, and then the Blue Devil killed the Clemson Tigers? What the hell is going on? The quarterback ain't no good, and Dabo Swinney needs to catch up with the rest of college football, and he's going to get left. You see, when you get 8 years of Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, it's pretty easy. Now you need to get in the transfer portal and get better players than the one you got. You brought that crazy quarterback, DJU. He was terrible. And now you said to everybody that this Klubnik guy was good. Running around like a chicken with his head cut off last night. You got to do a better job, Dabo. So that is the program for today. We're going to continue to fade Clemson. Hopefully you took that advice. You got a season-long fantasy league draft coming up. Move your league over to Rival Fantasy. They'll pay your league prizes, and you basically can play for free money over there at Rival Fantasy. So move your league over there to Rival Fantasy. Matter of fact, like I said, I'm telling the fellas tonight that I got the draft with. Let's go over to Rival Fantasy. You should do the same. Now, enjoy the rest of your day. Corey Parson, the Fantasy Executive. I'll holler at you.